Welcome to the Prodigal Blonde Unfiltered with me, Andrea Logan, where we share the good, the bad, and the beautiful. You guys are in for a treat today with today's guest, Jesi Stracham. She is a trailblazing entrepreneur, speaker, and fierce advocate dedicated to transforming lives through her innovative ventures. As the co-owner of Freedom, Longevity, and Wellness, she pioneers cutting-edge therapies that redefine holistic health and recovery. Jesi also co-developed the Wheel With Me Adapt Fit app, empowering wheelchair users to reclaim their independence through fitness. And she is a force to be reckoned with. Everybody, Jesi Stracham, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm stoked to be here. Gosh, that's such an introduction. Every time I get introduced, I'm just like, wow, I've done some stuff.
You are an overachiever and you're still really young. So that's like props to you.
Hey, I didn't have kids in my 20s. I stayed single. And so I think that's what allowed me to get to focus solely on me for a bunch of years. Now I'm a bonus mom. So it's like now we do sports and I go all the places and do all the things. So it's a different season of life.
Oh my gosh, I love that. So share with the audience your journey and what you do to inspire others, because you are such an inspiration. And you could be a victim and you could live in pity, but you are an overcomer and you shine so bright for God. So share with the audience the greatness that you share with the world.
Well, I actually, I was a victim for a little bit of my reality, both before a life-changing event and after. But I think it goes back growing up. I really didn't have God. I didn't go to church regularly. Sometimes I would go to summer church, but I didn't pray. I didn't believe really in God. And so there was moments throughout life, where God tries to wake you up by giving you a big struggle. At 15, I got pregnant and had an abortion, and I still continued to live this reckless life. I gave my body away freely, and I kept seeking validation from sexual partners, essentially, at such a young age, and I never really had an understanding of the degree of that. And so it wasn't until I got paralyzed in a motorcycle accident at 22 years old where I actually found God the day before. I was with an ex-boyfriend where I just was really bad to him. I had no business. It was a 4-year relationship and I treated him so poorly. And I was at his grandmother's funeral the day before my accident. And I felt calmness come over me as the pastor was speaking. And I just knew everything was going to be okay and that Granny was going to be safe. And I thought it was all about Granny because Granny was a big believer. And so I'm like, oh, Granny's going to be great. God's got her. There is a God. He saves us. He has us. And then the next day, I'm in a life-changing motorcycle accident where a woman made a U-turn in front of us, and the driver of the bike didn't stop in time. And it was a sport bike, so as a passenger, I sat a little higher, and he went through the back window of the SUV, broke his leg. I went over the SUV. I broke my back in 2 places. My chest collapsed, my ribs punctured my lungs, nicked my spinal cord. I have a traumatic brain injury, and I coded twice, having to be resuscitated. And at some point, I'm assuming when I coded, I saw my own grandmother who passed when I was a child. And she told me, Jesi May, it's not your time. You can't stay with me and I can't stay with you, but you have things to do and people to get back to. And honestly, through the first 6 months of being paralyzed, that's the only thing that kept me alive. Because I'm like, there's a bigger mission to this. There's a bigger mission to this. This struggle is for a purpose. And now, obviously with that bio, it's like the purpose has been served and continues to be served. And so it is the biggest blessing that ever happened to me, but definitely in the moment, I'm like, I don't think I can do this life.
Right. So that was coming out of that. Were you in a coma after the accident? I mean, I can only imagine. So how long were you in a coma?
So the first 5 days I was in and out of consciousness. And then I finally stabilized as far as being aware towards the end of that 5 days, but my lungs had been punctured. Excuse me. And so I couldn't breathe at all. My oxygen kept dropping. At one point, my oxygen dropped down to the 40s, 30s, and I was wide awake, and they intubated me while I was wide awake. My hands were tied to the bed. I felt like I was in a terrible Saw movie. It's probably the worst part of the whole entire accident and stay. Just imagine being tied to the bed, shoving a tube down your throat, and you're just like, tears running down your face because you're just It was terrible. And I had been for 4 days. I couldn't talk. So I had to communicate through a whiteboard, writing on a whiteboard. And my mouth was just stuck wide open, like a crazy Saw movie contraption. And they pulled that out, and I still was not okay. I started getting pneumonia in my lungs. So they shoved a suction up my nose down into my lungs to suction everything out 5 times in one 12-hour shift. And the next day I said, okay, trach me, where you put the hole in your neck. And the whole reason I fought it is because I didn't want a butthole looking scar in my neck. Vanity all the way. And you can barely even see the scar now. And so it's like, wow, I literally risked my life for vanity for what? And once they gave me the trach, I was able to self-suction through that hole, get everything out of my lungs, and then move on to inpatient rehab, where I actually learned how to be paralyzed. And it was just a wild ride, because I went home after 3 weeks. You only get 3 weeks to learn how to be paralyzed. Insurance doesn't really approve much more. And I go home, I get an infection in my intestines, because a lot of times people see paralysis and they don't realize it comes with bowel bladder issues. And so I actually have to use a catheter every time I go to the bathroom, and I just catheterize myself. And it's the craziest thing. And I'm like trying to make it normal, where people know, hey, you don't just lose function and sensation, you actually lose bowel bladder control too. And just trying to normalize that, because so many people have bladder issues, so many people have bowel issues, and we're so worried about what people are going to think about those things. I just embraced it. I was like, this is part of my life. I got to go cath. It's going to take me longer. Like, one thing that's I think is quirky about being paralyzed is I announce when I'm going to the bathroom, just so people know I'm gone for 15 minutes. That's why.
That is amazing that to have that overcoming spirit that we humans take for granted, to just go use the restroom like a normal human. Like, so not only were you told when the doctor said you're never going to walk again, by the way, you're going to have to cath yourself every time you use the restroom for the rest of your life. Like, how did you swallow that information? Like,
that's how I was paralyzed, honestly. So I woke up to a nurse cathing me, and I couldn't feel it. And I'm like, hey, like, what are you doing between my legs, ma'am? Like, what's going on here? And she said, oh, I'm draining your bladder. I'm cathing you. And I'm like, well, why can't I go to the toilet? And she said, well, you have a spinal cord injury. And I'm like, yeah, but why can't I go to the toilet? I didn't know that a spinal cord injury impacted bowel and bladder control. I didn't know that sensation would be completely lost. And I was paralyzed from the chest down. So from about the middle of my chest down, I had no sensation initially. And it's the weirdest thing to touch your body and not feel it, to lift your legs and not feel where it's going. It's just, I don't think there's any way to explain what it, just a complete mind shift it is to get paralyzed, to experience life this way. And I do feel grateful, because I took so much for granted. And even right now, I tore my labrum in my shoulder, and I ended up getting an MRI because I was having shoulder pain, didn't understand why. And I thought it was micro tears. And they're like, no, you actually have a large tear in your labrum and a cyst has formed, which is probably causing your pain. They're like, you're going to need surgery. It's going to be 3 to 4 months that you can't use that arm. And I'm like, oh, my legs don't work at all. So you're telling me 3 to 4 months I would be bedbound. And it's like the gift that keeps on giving. Before that, it was I broke my spinal fusion in half and I needed another back surgery. And before that, it was the first time I broke my spinal fusion in half and needed a revision surgery. And then before that, it was the initial surgery. And I think one of the biggest things that my paralysis put into perspective is that life's always going to hand us hardship. And the way that we decide to address that hardship and focus on it is what's going to determine how we get through it. So I had the choice to be the victim of my circumstances, which I was the first year. You should feel bad for me because I use a wheelchair. You should be bad for me because I struggle. You should feel bad for me because it takes me longer to do things. But I had to have a mindset shift, because you know what I was? Miserable in my own reality. Because I was playing victim, I created misery. And the more that I became the victor of my life, and I was like, so I'm paralyzed, I can't change it. What can I do with this? How can I make the best out of this? What can I experience? And I've experienced more life in the past 10 years of being paralyzed than I did in the first 22 years of my life walking. And I raced off road all growing up on four-wheelers. I rode all the time on four-wheelers and dirt bikes. I did adrenaline junkie things. I traveled the whole East Coast with my family racing. And so like I had a really cool experience before this happened. But after this happened, life got freaking fun. And it's because my perspective of life shifted. Even before I was injured, I was the victim of my reality. Well, I came from parents that, they were just middle class and lower middle class, and they just did their best. And, I'll never be able to make more money, achieve more things, do this in my life because of where I came from. And I had all these limiting beliefs that it took me going through the hardship of being paralyzed to realize that was the reality that I was creating.
Oh my gosh, Jesi, I have chills because as you're speaking, your mental strength, you have the mental strength of an Olympian. And I'm thinking about how these rich, worldly successful people are addicted, are miserable. They have all the money in the world. They're on drugs, they're on alcohol. And I'm like, you shine so bright, and you have aside from literally that mental strength of overcoming and changing the perspective of your reality, which is everything, what in the world do you do on a daily basis to stay this positive and this, like, I'm like, you're motivating me to get off my butt and be like, oh my gosh.
Well, I'm not gonna lie, I have moments. When I saw the MRI results of this, I was definitely a victim for a second, and I was like, oh my God, what did I do? And then luckily my partner is the male version of me. I found the perfect person, manifested him. We can get into that a little later. I'm big on manifestation. We create our reality. And he's like, we're not doing this. Jesi, you're in a different place. You co-own a wellness facility that has a hyperbaric chamber, PEMF therapy. You have access to peptides. You have access. You are a nutrition coach. You know the nutrition that you need to heal this. You have access to the best PTs in the area. Why are you panicking? You need to breathe. You have access to everything you need to heal this naturally. It's just up to you to do it. And so there are moments where I fall into that, oh, woe is me, poor me mindset, but I also am surrounded by people that pull me out of it. And I also am able to pray enough to check myself. And usually when I fall into that mindset, it's because my daily habits are off. So reading 10 pages of a nonfiction personal development book every single day. I did 75 hard 4 times. And that program changed my life. I'm a massive advocate for First Form. I love the company, not just the supplements, but what the culture is. And Andy Frisella really changed my life with that program. So that's one habit that's stuck with me, because you are gaining knowledge from other people's life experience that you apply to your own life. And I think that's so important because it allows you to shortcut so much of the hardship. And it allows you to understand different coping mechanisms to deal as life hits you. Because regardless of what happens, life is going to hit you. You can't stop the pain. You can only change the way that you view it and deal with it. So definitely, that's like number one. Reading 10 pages is one of the best things you can do. Daily movement. I get some kind of movement, whether it's getting in a standing frame, leg races, or actually going to the gym or recovery as far as stretching. I track my nutrition. That's just more of a personal thing to make sure I'm eating enough. Because if you're chronically underfed, you just can't even think straight. I meditate daily, like non-negotiable. I actually use a device most of the time called Brain Tap. It uses lights to reset your brain waves. I have a brain injury, and so I have to get every single edge I can to get my brain to function properly. And journaling. The way that I personally process my emotions is through journaling. I am able to kind of work through things. I write it down, what makes sense. I break down why I feel that way. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of silly that I feel that way. And I'm able to be like, oh, I'm making this up. My brain's doing what a brain does. Because things up here in your head, they will typically be a lie. And they will try to bring you down. And it's like your brain creates the most unrealistic narratives. And if you listen to them, stops you from being able to achieve half of what you're capable of.
Preach. You are speaking so much truth. And I can only imagine. Now, I didn't have a traumatic brain injury. I had a lot of chronic illness that I had to walk out of. And one of the biggest healing tools was retraining my brain with neuroplasticity, because our brain is plastic. So I love that you incorporate that, because our minds are the most powerful thing. We have this God-given miracle that God said, choose life or death. And life or death starts with our thoughts, and then what we choose to believe. What thought are we going to take? So I had to completely rewire my brain, my mind, my history, my stories, right? Because we kind of are all in our stories and our programming. So I love that you're into that. And with meditation, do you do a specific one, or how do you do that with a brain injury?
So I use the device called Brain Tap, and it actually has an app that goes with it, and it's really cool. It's headphones with a shield that comes down, and the shield all has infrared lights, and the lights are flashing and doing different things. And I personally like the dual voice, where it's two different voices in each ear. And it just really forces you to take your mind to another level, and it resets your brain waves. So it takes you down to delta waves, back to alpha waves, and it's resetting the way that your brain's structured. So I did the WAVI scan on my brain, where they put this thing on, you do a couple of tests, and it shows where your brain's at. And then I did it again a year later after using Brain Tap, and I had improvements in my reaction times, my cognitive function, all the above. It was incredible. And so I'm a big advocate for this device because it has changed my life. And then my boyfriend and I, on the weekends, we do Om meditations or Dr. Joe Dispenza meditations. Yep. Those are very well for healing and things like that. But Om is personally my favorite to do with him. I just like a good Om meditation. I like to visualize and kind of see where my life is going to go and what I'm working towards.
I love that, because it all starts with creative. God gave us a creative, visionary brain. So share with me, you said you manifested your boyfriend.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Can you share that story? Because I want people to know, like, God, what it is to write down and to visualize and to actually live at the end of, like, God already answering our prayers. So I would love for you to share that.
So I had a situationship, I'll call it, with another wheelchair user. I thought we were in a relationship. Clearly, he had different plans. We were 7 months in, and he's like, life's too crazy for me right now. So I can't do this. And I was like, wait, what? Or start something new is what he said. And I'm like, it's been 7 months. What do you mean start something new? And we've known each other for years. Like, what? And I never wanted to feel that way again. And I had previously made a list of what I wanted in a partner. And I said the things I didn't want, and that's what I got in that guy. Whew. And so this time I said all the things I want in this partner. I'm like, everything I want, down to I use cannabis for pain. So I need somebody that's not going to judge me for using cannabis. Mm-hmm. I have big dreams and goals, and I don't want somebody to ride on my coattails. So I need somebody that also has big dreams and goals. I have a lot of love to give this world, and I want to help people. So I also want someone that has that same compassion for others. But I also need someone that's going to put me in my place, because I'm very, very alpha and dominant, and I need someone that's more alpha and dominant to allow me to really, really step into my femme energy. I've never been able to step fully into my femme energy, and so that was something I was on there. Allows me to really own that energy. And 7 months went by, something like that. And I get this message from this wellness facility, and it's like, it's October, and it's like, hey, we're opening in January. Would love to have you in to check out the accessibility. And I was like, perfect. I love this. I love cold plunging. I love PMF. I love all these things. And it's all under one roof. And so I go into this wellness facility after a massage, and I was actually going to cancel the appointment. I was like, I just really want to go home and cuddle my dog. I just had a massage. I was like, no, I'm going to go. And this man walks out of the building, and as soon as I saw him, I was like, whoa, like I felt something. It was crazy. I've never instantly been attracted to somebody. And we start talking, and I scheduled 2 hours to be there. I ended up being there for 4 hours. And he goes, yeah, my fiance. And I was like, wait, what? No, I can't do this, because that's not who I am. I'm not going to do that. So I let it be. But we still chatted every day about personal development or about the business. and they were looking for an investor, and I had been saving for a house, but I loved what they did so much in that business. I was like, yo, I'll invest in this. I'll become co-owner. Like, I love this business. And so 2 weeks later, I bought into the business, and now I own a wellness facility. And comes to find out, the more that we chatted, and I chatted with my new business partners, his relationship wasn't going well. They were on their way to breaking up. And so I just showed up as a friend. I was like, I'll be your friend. Like, let's just chat business. We're business partners now. And we built this crazy friendship over the last year, never crossed any lines. And it was the first time in my life I didn't sleep with somebody before ending up with them. It's my first time in my life that I actually built a solid friendship with somebody before being with them. And so now I'm in a relationship with this person who's my best friend. And then I believe that God really put us through that, because I wasn't ready to be the mom his kids need this time last year. And so it allowed me to grow and develop and get to a place where I had more patience, where I had more ability to show up in that mom capacity, where I couldn't have done that last year. And so it's like, we both had growing to do, and God really aligned it.
So how long have you guys, I mean, that is the beautiful thing about when it kind of hits you, you were honoring him in his other relationship, but the foundation was built on friendship. And I feel like people go 0 to 100, not because they're so excited and the relationship is new, but at the end of the day, you have to be best friends. And to me, it was God orchestrated it, and he knows what he's doing when he puts you together, because you're making the world a better place, sharing what you know to help others. So you guys own this facility together?
Yep. So, and we have another husband-wife partner that's a veteran. And then we just brought another partner in this year because we're expanding. And so it's been really, really incredible. But we spent 11 months building that friendship before we actually ended up together. I think one of the most important things I did was I take very long periods of celibacy where I don't go on dates. I don't do anything, because I really, after something ended, I had to have that time to heal myself. I didn't want to keep jumping from partner to partner. And it allowed me to create what was non-negotiable for me. I would rather be alone than be treated poorly. I would rather be alone than to settle. And it took a lot for me to find that place, right? It takes a lot for you to find that respect for yourself, to say, you know what? No, I'm worthy of the love that I'm worthy of, and I'm not going to settle for anything less. And so I stayed celibate. I had opportunities. I did, at one point last year, I did download a dating app, and after like a week of being on it, I'm like, I don't want to go on a date with anyone else. No one else is worth it. I'm just going to wait. I'm just going to live my life. And that's what I did. I just focused on personal development and just waiting. And I think that's where humans mess up a lot, is we don't have a lot of patience.
Gosh, well, that's where we grow the most, is because people, as humans, they like to escape, whether it's a relationship or it's work, right? Because everybody wants that dopamine, that instant dopamine. And it's really, I enjoy aging, because I've dated one person in 5.5 years. So same thing. But the cost of peace and knowing your worth and who God made you as a child of God, and knowing what you will allow and the way you deserve to be treated, not as self-righteous, but like, no, I know what I need. I know what I deserve. And I'm the same way. I'm like, I'd rather be single than be in a toxic, unhealthy relationship in any form, like in any way. So I'm excited for you to see how that unfolds. And for those people that are maybe not even in a wheelchair, but struggling with chronic pain or an illness where they feel like, they don't have the mental strength that you have, what tip and advice would you give them to get to where you are at? Because you are so strong in the body, mind, and spirit.
You have to do things to start making yourself feel better. It's a habit that I've implemented recently, and I haven't been as consistent as I'd like to be. I think I'm on day 4 right now. Before that, it was like 2 weeks, is reading the Bible. I read a chapter of the Bible every day before I get out of bed. I just pop open the Bible app. I click next chapter from the day before, and I just keep reading. And that helps me stay very centered. But it's things like that, things that are going to make you feel better. Something I'm very mindful of. I live in an apartment where we have 3 windows in the living room. And so I take my dog outside numerous times throughout the day. And I make sure we spend at least 5 to 10 minutes out there to get sunlight in our eyeballs. I tell the kids before they can turn the TV on, we got to go outside and get some sunlight in our eyeballs. and really doing things that make you feel better. Going to the gym. If I skip 2 or more days in a row in the gym or getting some kind of movement, not going to happen for the energy. I'm going to start doubting myself. I'm going to start thinking less of myself. And if I'm really, really in a spiral, I put on makeup as a woman because I'm like, you know what? You always feel pretty. And if I need a little extra, we're adding lashes too. We'll put some eyeshadow on. We'll do our hair. But I think something as simple as that, just throwing on a little bit of makeup, getting outside and getting some sunlight, giving your body some movement. Do things that make you feel good. If you love art, draw some art. If you like making music, make some music. I love to vlog and make content and make YouTube videos. So something I do is I'll make a YouTube video and I'm like, what can we teach people? How to change a tire, how to change your mindset. Like I'm all over the place as far as things that make me feel good. Because one month, something that made me feel good last month might not do it for me this month. And so you also have to have a list of things that you can switch through that bring that energy up in you and be like, okay, now I'm gaining momentum. You go to the gym, it's like, okay, maybe I can, make little better choices in food today. Maybe I can force myself to drink a little bit more water. And setting timers. There's days where I just have to set a butt ton of timers so I'm able to remember to drink the water, remember to eat the meal. Because if you're a high performing female, you're just going to keep on going until you can't stop and you're going to forget to take care of you in the process. And so make sure to take care of you. And if you have to set timers and reminders, use those tools so you make sure to prioritize your wellness in the journey.
Oh my gosh, that is valuable information. Yes, that is so true. I always tell people over the pandemic when my kids were homeschooled and I was newly divorced, every day I got up, even if I was in sweatpants, I put makeup on because I was like, I'm not going to be this like stay-at-home mom, like you just have to do what makes you feel good and pretty. Tell us about your nutrition and how important that is to keep going. Like you said, you did 75 hard. That's no joke. You have glowing skin. I know nutrition can make you or break you as an athlete, as a human, as a woman, especially.
As a woman, especially because we're taught that carbs and fats are bad. And it's the types of carbs and fats that we eat, right? And when they're consumed in excess. But carbs actually give your body energy and fats help your hormone production. As women, we need hormone support anywhere we can get it from, especially with all the additives in our food that create hormone disruption, all the things in our environment that create hormone disruption, and you just being a woman and going through hormone disruption. There's so much that causes this. And when you start eating whole foods and actually nourishing your body, a salad's not a meal. And I'll say it for the people in the back, a salad is not a meal. It doesn't mean healthy. You need protein. Protein's what makes you lean and toned. If you want that flat stomach, if you want those nice toned looking arms, not bulky, toned. If you want to be toned, you need to prioritize protein through and through. And as women, we lose bone density as we age and muscle mass as we age. And so if you're constantly under eating in your 30s and 40s, it's going to make your 50s and 60s a massive struggle. And I think we forget what we do now. It might not impact right now, but it's going to impact 10, 20 years from now. And so you have to be mindful on the habits that you're currently carrying and how they're serving you later on in life. It's not about right now. It's about later on. It's not about weight loss. It's about later on. Do you want to be independent? Do you want to battle a bunch of health issues? Or do you want to live a healthy life as you age? That's what your habits now are going to dictate in the future.
So important. And, you can have two people side by side and see their habits, and one can have broken bones. And, it's really the alcohol, the smoking, the poor diets. In your 20s, we think we're invincible with the way we treat our bodies. And then as you get older, you're like, oh, there's actually these are building blocks. Hello.
100%. 100%. That's what led me to nutrition coaching. Right. It's what led me to nutrition coaching. Is 5 years into getting paralyzed, I was 27 and I lost all of my independence. I wasn't able to transfer. I wasn't able to get dressed. My shoulders were falling apart. And I started tracking my nutrition at the recommendation of someone. He's like, oh, it sounds like you're not eating enough protein. Track your nutrition. And so I did. And would you believe that within 6 months, my shoulder health turned around? And so it's like, because I was a chronic undereater, I was destroying my body at a faster rate because I only have half my body in use, right? It may have taken longer had I been using my full body. And I think that my paralysis is my superpower. And it's like, hey, warning signals. This is what could happen to you, but it might not happen until you're 40 because you have full use of your body. Like, hey, ladies, we've got to prioritize food. We cannot continue to starve ourselves. This whole 90s, early thousands diet culture is trash. Everything we've been taught about food is pretty much wrong. That pyramid is BS as well. Like, let's get back to basics, feed our body whole foods, natural foods, and actually feed our body and nourish it enough. And let's go out and create actual change for ourselves. That's what I do as a coach. We break down your mindset around food, and then we talk about actual creating a lifestyle with food. Because unless we change your mindset, you will chronically diet the rest of your life.
Oh my gosh, that is such good advice because most women overexercise and undereat.
Yeah.
Because we're made, the society shames us for like, okay, you're supposed to wear all the hats and be superheroes and also look perfect on the outside and in the inside and do this. And I think it's so dangerous one way or the other, whether it's overeating, undereating, or just falling. You know, you probably, as you're talking, I'm like, you take better care of yourself than most healthy people do, or they think that they're healthy because you are aware of the fragility of how our body breaks down as we age.
Well, I will say that momhood humbled me. Before becoming a bonus mom, I definitely didn't understand how hard it is to prioritize yourself as a mom. Now we have two boys, they're 10 and 9. No joke. So that, like, two boys at that age are just wild. And I love
Energy.
right. But it took, I'm not going to lie, it took this shoulder injury for me to actually be like, no, I have to track my nutrition consistently. No, I have to prioritize myself. Like this morning, I dropped our youngest off his mom's and I went and had a hyperbaric session. And that's the first time in the last 6 months I was like, okay, my health has to come first because my body's deteriorating quick. And my partner has been telling me this for the last 6 months. He has told me, Jesi, you need to take care of yourself. Jesi, you need to take care of yourself. You're falling apart. Jesi, you're coming at the seams. You've got to take care of yourself. And it took the cyst on the injury to be like, okay, I don't have a choice at this point, or I'm not going to be able to keep it up. And so I just want to help moms get to that point beforehand of like, hey, this is how you can prioritize, meal prep for yourself. I always make an extra portion of dinner. So I have meal prep the next day. And that is the best thing I do. And sometimes I'll make extra. So I'll have maybe lunch and dinner if I know that the kids have a game or something. I always try to prep, and that's what saves me. I keep healthy options in the fridge, high protein. Like Good Culture cottage cheese is my best friend. I make Alfredo out of it. I put it in smoothies. I just eat it straight up. Like I put it on toast. So there's so much versatility with certain things. You can take Greek yogurt, add ranch seasoning to it. Now you have a veggie dip. And with protein, correct. So it's higher protein, less fat, helping you. If you make mashed potatoes and you want your mashed potatoes to have a little added protein, throw some Greek yogurt in it instead of sour cream. Make them super creamy, super smooth. And it's a nice little hack for you just to boost those protein numbers in things that you like. And that's what it is. We're conditioned to believe that we have to go on this strict diet and cut out everything we love. No, there's just different ways to incorporate more protein into what you love to make it fit your lifestyle. And that's really where there's a disconnect in society is like, hey, we can actually make this fit our lifestyle and it can actually be pretty enjoyable.
I love that. It's funny because I've tried all the diets. I was a personal trainer 25 years ago in my 20s. So, and then you move to LA and it's so like orthorexic, right? And so obviously I have 3 kids and they're all 12, 15, and 19. So I've tried every health regimen, all the things with my chronic illness that I had. But just getting back to the cottage cheese and the yogurt, I steered away from dairy for so long. And the last year I'm like, I missed it so much. It's so delicious. And you look at the ingredients, if you get the good culture, it's got the probiotics, and there's like three, it's a whole food. And
Mhm.
so I think if anything, like you said, it's adding those things. You can add them in soups and or starting small. What I did is I started with a couple spoonfuls of it to get my digestion used to it. But I am so into the game of whole foods and eating real, right? Not that we can't have the times of being imperfect, but really setting that base. And as you're speaking, I just keep hearing discipline, discipline, discipline. Your life is extremely disciplined and your priorities are in line, like opening the word of God and first thing in the morning and knowing that you schedule everything, you make yourself a priority, but you literally have the life like you're an Olympian, right? Like I just keep seeing your habits and your patterns where people you could be anything you want to be, and your what you've walked through has not stopped you. If anything, it's made you a better human for other people, and you've shined bright because of what you've walked through. I mean, I am so encouraged to see that. I just want to thank you for being just a ray of hope for people that could live their lives as victims. But you're not only helping others, you're sharing your story to say like there's another way to live.
Yeah. Well, because I
There's
was
another
on,
way.
right? Like think about our parents. And that's what I lived with my parents. So total God thing again. Like God has been in my life since the spinal cord injury and even before. About 2 years before my accident, my parents bought their house and I moved in like 2, 3 months after they bought it. My ex and I split up and I just moved back home. And the basement had these wide doorways. There was bars beside the toilet and it had this massive shower. And I'm like, man, this shower is so big. I wonder what they used it for. And I get paralyzed. We had to put a ramp and a lift in. Would you know that was a roll-in shower? And the bars beside the toilet were for someone that's disabled, and the wide doorways were for a wheelchair user. My parents bought a fully accessible house, besides the ramp and the lift that needed to be put in, with a full basement that was accessible, an apartment before I got paralyzed. 2 years before I got paralyzed. And so when I got paralyzed, it was like, I have everything I need. I just had to put a ramp and a lift in. And up until I moved in with my boyfriend at the end of 2024, that's where I rented from. It was like $300 a month. I had a Blackstone. I had everything I needed in the basement to have a full little apartment where I can cook and do what I need to do. And I rented the basement for my parents. And it's so funny because I met a girl on Instagram who now runs my nonprofit and is one of my closest friends. And we were going to get a place together. And my mom said, well, why doesn't she just move in here? And I was like, okay. So she packed up all her stuff, mailed it from Wisconsin, hopped on a flight, moved in with me to my mom's basement. And then her boyfriend also is a wheelchair user. And so now they rent the basement for my mom and she's putting in a full kitchen and everything down there for them so they don't ever leave.
Oh my gosh. It's the
Yeah.
gift that keeps on giving.
Literally, God is so good. It's wild. And that's why I tell people, I'm like, when you see how God shows up, I mean, just with my shoulder injury, I literally just talked about this on a coaching call the other day. I'm like, you have to be careful what you wish for because I have been asking God for the last 2 months. I need a purpose that's fitness focused, but not competing. I don't want to compete in CrossFit anymore. I don't want to go back and do Tough Mudders. Like
Yeah.
those high intensity things are done. I've done 5 CrossFit games. I've done 15 Tough Mudders. I did their 24-hour event 4 times. Like my body's been through it. And so I need some kind of fitness goal that will still allow me to serve people and help people, but I just don't know what that looks like. And then last week, our business coach for the facility was like, hey, you guys need to get a client testimonial for an injury recovery. And then last Wednesday, I had an MRI. And then on Friday, I found out that I have a large tear in my shoulder. So guess who the injury recovery journey is? God provides exactly what we ask for. And if you don't stop long enough to see that, I fell out of my chair walking the dog 2 nights ago. And it was on the alley where I never go. And it was the first. So I'm a very proud woman and I do
Yeah.
things myself, if you couldn't tell. And I've been having the shoulder issue for the last 2 months. And my boyfriend, every time I fall, he's like, you need to call me. Why don't you call me? And I'm like, because I don't want to inconvenience you. Da, da, da. And so this is the first time I get to call him when I fall. And I'm like, yeah, I get to call you. Hey, baby, I fell. And he's like, oh my God, where are you? Freaking out. And as this is happening, a car pulls up and stops. And this man gets out. And he's like, I'm a firefighter. I can help you. And I was like, no, no, no. My boyfriend's on his way. Please, like, I just want to wait for him. This is his first time getting to save me. And it's just a really important moment for me personally. And turns out this firefighter was forced to retire on medical leave. He was having hip injuries. He had surgery and then got something called HO, which is a lot of inflammation in the hip. And he wasn't able to go back to work. And he had lost his purpose. And he's just really emotional, a little bit manic. And in that moment, my boyfriend got to serve this man. And it ended with this man sobbing and them hugging. And it was so beautiful. And I'm like, had I not fallen out of my chair, that man never comes around. He's like, I never come around this way. I just happened to turn down this way. And I saw her out of the chair and I was like, oh my God, I got to get her. And it was, had I not been up there where I never go, had I not fallen, had he not made the turn where he never goes, had I not actually called my boyfriend, we wouldn't have had the chance to have this impact on this man. And it's like, God shows up in our life every single day in so many ways. And unless you take a minute to stop and be like, oh, this is God, and you see how powerful he is in your life and in your journey, that's what keeps you guided. That's what keeps you going. So it's like, oh, this mission's way bigger than me. And when you stop making the mission about yourself and make it about something bigger than you, it's easier to stay committed and disciplined to it. And where I lost discipline for a short period of time is when I started focusing back on me rather than the mission at hand.
Oh my gosh, you hit the nail on the head. That is the whole point of life. And it's more of him, less of us. And it's God within us. And that's truly, I couldn't end on a more beautiful note. That is exactly what life is all about, Jesi. So
100%.
thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Golly, it was so good.
Yeah, so good. I'm so inspired. And my son has been going through a massive, he lost 2 years of has a broken patella, or he broke it 2 years ago. And so he just graduated high school, but he had to do the last 2 years online. And so he's been going through massive, just mental battles, right? Because what we think our life should look like as an athlete. So he had to give all of that up. And so I'm like, you need to talk to my son who's 19. You can kick my boy into shape, because he's really struggling with chronic illness. He had stomach surgery. So I can relate to the unknowns of everything that nothing as extreme as what you've gone through. But as a parent, seeing my son suffer and I can't fix it, but yet I know God is working. And whoever's listening to this, we know, even if you can't see the solution, God is working no matter what. So I just want to thank you for being that voice to the people that need it. And you are just a gift.
As a parent, I think that's so hard my boyfriend's youngest actually battled brain cancer as a baby and as a toddler. And he's in remission now, living his best 9-year-old life. It's Enzo's world and we live in it. But we just started a YouTube for him. I got the videos. I just have to actually get it created for him to inspire other kids that have this rare brain cancer, to show them that life is going to be okay. And I think that our struggles are relative to perspective, and you can't compare your struggle to anyone else's. And what feels ending and life shattering, it's hard to see that there is life beyond that, and that you will get through it as long as you put the effort. And to your son, he could go be a coach. He could go do whatever he wants. It just is a matter of, hey, life looks a little different, and that sucks. There's times that I wish I could go play soccer. My kids, the oldest, plays soccer. Yes. They love going to the field, and I sit and watch, and I'm like, man, I wish I could kick the ball. But if I focus on what I can't do, that's what's going to put me in that perpetual state of depression. And so it's figuring out what he can do and what he can do that brings him joy. And the more that he exposes himself to, the more that he'll be like, okay, life is still doable. In the LA area, there's something called, it's the Angels something. I will send it to you. They have something called the Angels Games, which is a bunch of adaptive athletics. He should definitely just go check that out, because it will change his perspective. It's the end of June, I believe, or end of July.
I love that. Oh, yeah. You are a gem.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing your story. I'm so inspired. And you are such a gift to so many people. Thank you for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing your platform with me. And if, someone in the audience, if you guys gain value from today's show, please share it with a friend, give it to them directly. If there's a certain thing in it, just let them know what it was that inspired you or impacted you. And that's how this show grows, and show your support.